Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday and welcome to the Rangers Review Morning Briefing. It is Friday, the 23rd of August. I'm Derek Clark and I'm joined this morning by Stevie Clifford. How's it going, Stevie?
Well, you know how it's going because Derek and I have actually been on since 9:24 and we were laughing at ourselves how early we were, but the weather here is atrocious in sunny Barhead. It's not so sunny, the rain is terrible and it's windy and everything. So I was up in my loft and had to run downstairs because the connection was so bad just so we could start on time for you. So from being early, we were almost late, Derek.
Yeah, unbelievable stuff. I wish we went live just a minute or so ago when Stevie was hot-footing it down from his loft. That was quite a sight. But yeah, good to have him on in full bandwidth. And yeah, if you drop out, Stevie, don't worry about it. I've done it to you a couple of times in the last few months or so. So yeah, I owe you one. That's for sure. But yeah, let's crack on with all things Rangers. It is match day -1, as the kids call it these days. So we will look ahead to that game against Ross County tomorrow. Let's hope it's the last one Rangers play at Hampden as opposed to Ibrox. Before we discuss that game and who is likely to start, Stevie, transfer news emerging this morning that Rangers have had a bid rejected from the Spanish club Almeria for the Brazilian defender Keke. Hopefully that's how you've pronounced it. He's a 20-year-old centre-back, began his career at Santos before moving to Almeria in 2022 for a fee in the region of around €7 million. Now, according to Fabrizio Romano on Twitter, Rangers have had a £750,000 loan bid plus a €7 million and 30% sell-on clause rejected this week. So quite a substantial amount of cash that Rangers would be willing to spend on this boy. Of course, they outlay just $750,000 to begin with, but it has been rejected. Just a bit about him. He spent second half of last season on loan at a fellow Spanish side at Albacete. Almeria were relegated from La Liga last season, so they are a Segunda division side this term, but certainly came from left field, this one, Stevie.
Yeah, the source is very good, though. Fabrizio Romano is probably, up there with the best in-the-know people on social media. So, first of all, you're going to believe it, aren't you? But second of all, Derek, this is not the first time or even the second time this summer that we've been linked with some really high-value transfers, as bizarre as it might be. So I think there's definitely things happening. I think that's reasonable to suspect that. And I just wonder if, and we speculated yesterday, didn't we, that players are beginning to move out the door and beginning to get closer to those exits. I wonder if Rangers are readying themselves for, some potentially really good incomings. That's the ideal kind of dream scenario for all of us sitting here. I think, it's been a summer where I think Proper and Cherry will turn out to be really good signings. But I think that aside of that, I think we're maybe waiting on those first-team players that are going to be the key difference this season. And if they can come in, then it's really interesting. So, yeah, I can't claim to know much about this boy. I don't even know much about him in Football Manager land. So I can't really say too much. But it's an interesting link, isn't it? It's one that certainly gets your mind kind of thinking a wee bit, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. A few comments coming in saying, where is the cash coming from? It's not the first player. Like you say, Stevie, Rangers have been linked with big money moves with a number of players in this transfer window. The one recently, a couple of days ago, was the Benfica winger, Thiago Gouveia. Benfica looking for €78 million for him. Morgan Whittaker, of course, is another one that would cost Rangers big money. And now this lad as well. Now, with $750,000, it looks like it would be an initial loan deal with what looks like an option to buy come the end of that loan spell. And 30% sell-on is a pretty chunky sell-on as well, Stevie. So, Rangers must see a lot of potential in this boy. Such a young guy. I think maybe looking at Almeria getting relegated from the top flight in Spain, perhaps are looking to cash in on some of their assets at this moment in time. But it's you got to trust that the manager and Niels Coppin for identifying these guys, and it certainly would be a bit of a risky gamble, you could say, a bit of an outlay for Rangers to spend if they can get this one over the line. But it seems to be. What do you make of the fact that they have been linked big money moves over the course of the window? Do you sense that something may be afoot before the window closes?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope so. That's the dream scenario I was just talking about, Derek, isn't it? I mean, pretty sure that, by all accounts, you were there in Birmingham with us, and we were told quite reliably that the Morgan Whittaker stuff was true.
Yeah.
And that was at the time where they were making the second bid. So I'm quite comfortable with that. And that was interesting. And then you wonder, is there players going out the door?
Yeah.
And your only real people, like, see if we're bringing in a centre half, I've got to imagine that one of them's leaving, because you're not going to carry Suter, Cropper, Davies, and Balogun with Leon King. I don't think you're carrying, right? Sorry?
Enciala as well, remember?
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, so you've got enough there, right? Whether or not the quality's high. If we're bidding on a centre half like that, one of them's leaving. That's the conclusion that I jumped to, because you're not going to carry, and if you're spending that kind of money, then he's playing every minute of every game, aren't you? So that's an interesting thought process that I'm currently kind of weighing up. I know that Cantwell's been linked with a move, Matondo's been linked with a move, Hadji's been linked with a move, but we don't really know if anything's solid behind him, do we? So I just wonder, and I hope maybe things are happening. And that's actually wrote about it this morning in my article, Derek, that's out, just talking about the need to kind of move these players on. And I know that my opinion yesterday caused a wee bit of division online with the transfer value and stuff like that. But a lot of people understood where I was coming from with it as well. You know, maybe it's a case of we actually are getting money in for these guys, and we can kind of speculate a wee bit with what we've got left. So I don't know. It's interesting, because if we are bidding that for a centre back, it makes you wonder, because if you look at the team at the moment, I think everybody would say they would rather strengthen in a 10 or a winger or a striker or whatever before a centre half. I think most people would be comfortable with going with Proper and Suter. So I find it really interesting. It's quite bizarre that this link has come.
Yeah,
at this point. Yeah, it's quite an interesting one.
Yep. Do you know who the last player Rangers signed from Almeria was?
I want to say, and I'm not sure if this is right, is it Carlos Cuela?
No. He was from Austin.
Don't tell me. Just, I'm going to keep thinking about this.
There's a few people got it right in the chat, but don't look at the comment.
They're not under the stress of being live on this show, you know what I mean? So,
do you want to phone a friend?
I don't have any. Adam won't answer.
You can phone me.
Almeria. No, I'll need some time with that one. I don't know.
Right, okay. We'll let it stew, folks, or we'll want you to put out your misery, Stevie? Or
no, give me a couple of minutes. If I don't get it in a couple of minutes,
right, we'll move on. Right, we'll move. Like you mentioned there, Matondo, of course, John Eustace, their manager, formerly very briefly of Rangers when Mark Warburton was in charge. I remember the time when he took over, he was on the coaching staff. Rangers couldn't get it was supposed to be registered as a player, never quite happened, but he's now manager of Blackburn Rovers. He was quizzed on Matondo yesterday and whether he's a transfer target for them. He says, I think they are on the list along with 60 other players that the recruitment team have been looking at. They are, yes. So Matondo on a very vast list that Blackburn Rovers have in terms of transfers. What Rangers can bring in from him, I think it would be A good move for Rabbi Matondo to move on. I don't think it's quite worked for him at Rangers. We spoke about this yesterday. We have seen it in flashes, but not enough consistently from him and on the wages that he's on, from the money that was spent initially to bring him into the club. I don't think it's been value for money. So if a deal can be struck, then I think that would be good for both parties on that one. This is a player. Some comments came in here, Stevie, about a player that's been suggested is someone that is attracting interest. I know you're looking at, I can see you're still thinking about what player that is. John Allen says, what about Luke McOwen, of course, of Dundee, attracting attention from a number of clubs. I think Hibs were sniffing about him, even teams from down south as well. I know that Bolton Wanderers have reportedly been linked with him as well. Is he a player that you're a fan of, Stevie?
Yeah, he's a good player. He's a good player. Derek, listen, I can't concentrate. You're going to need to give me the initials of this boy.
J-O.
Juan Ortiz.
Juan Ortiz, yeah. So there you go.
Oh.
Can't believe you forgot him, Steve. He was a cult hero at Rangers.
Was he, aye?
Yeah.
Right,
yeah,
Luke McOwen.
His time at Ibrox, but Luke McOwen.
Yeah, I think he's a good player, isn't he? Hibs have bid a few times this week, haven't they, for him, I think. And as you said, Bolton were looking at him. I think he's fairly decent. And I tend to think that when you look at Conor Barron, and we've had this discussion a lot about the value there is in our league, sometimes when you're making like a bigger picture, like we have to completely rebuild, I don't think there's a massive deterrent for me to fill it with a couple of young Scottish lads. And I look at every successful Rangers team that I grew up with, the core of it, or the kind of standout players, some of them always Scottish. You look at Advocaat bringing in Neil McCann, who turned out to be unbelievable.
Brilliant. Yeah.
You know, Barry Ferguson was always there. Then you look at Walter. Walter, the first thing he did was bring in Davy Weir, Kevin Thompson in his second spell. On his first spell, he brought in the likes of Gorham, Davy Robertson, Stuart McCall. You know, so these are all teams that I've grown up with. You know, Alex McLeish brought in Boydie, stuff like that. So I am not against it at all, Derek. I cannot sit and say that I have seen him every week and I can tell you all about him. I knew more about Conor Barron. I was more interested in that because we had a kind of link that was quite early on. So I paid attention to him quite a bit. But Luke McOwen is an interesting one. Put it this way, I think this is probably fair to say. If he rocked up at Ibrox in the next week, I would welcome it because I wouldn't be completely knowledgeable in what we're getting. I know he's quite a tricky, fast wee winger. He's impressed in the games we played him in. I think that 0-0 at Dens, he was particularly good in that one and troublesome. I remember him breaking quite a few times and giving us a hard time. So yeah, if there was potential there to get somebody like that, then yes. And it's a low, and when you consider it, and we've been linked with guys like Danny Armstrong a lot, which I'm completely against, but you know, paying £1 million for a boy like this, and compared with maybe Danny Armstrong, I would be inclined to be a bit intrigued and welcoming on that one. I think that's fair.
Yeah. Players of that ilk we've discussed before. Not only McCowan's a decent player, the likes of Davy Watson at Kilmarnock. I would like to see at Ibrox. Lennon Miller is another one as well. Rangers should be looking to acquire the biggest talents in the Scottish game. For me, and like you on Barron, that was a bit of a welcome surprise. I used to Rangers managed to get that one over the line because there was some serious interest from some decent clubs in Conor Barron. And I've got to say, Stevie, he's been the signing of the summer so far.
Yeah, I think he has been. I think he has been incredibly good. And it was funny because, we're actually resting him in a game in a cup. And because he's went and done so much powerful running and his numbers are so high. So I found that really quite interesting. He is a workhorse. He is the type of player that we talked about him being on early doors. Now, I know that, you've got to sustain that. So the real challenge for Conor Barron is becoming, effective and sustaining that consistently. So I think that's fair. And I think that's a fair challenge for him. But from a Rangers point of view at this moment in time, I think he's been great, really, really good. I'm still not sure that the balance is right in the middle three, Derek. When we talk about, obviously because we need a 10 that's going to complement them two quite well. If you can get that Diamande Barron, a number 10 that's going to be positive, which I'm still hopeful we'll get in this next week, then I would be quite pleased with that. But Connor Barron, the initial thoughts on him is that he's been excellent, really strong runner, really good in the tackle, really good in recovery. And we talked about it. I think his stats at Aberdeen, I think he had 5.9 recoveries per game or something. We had talked about this before, and it was amongst the highest in the kind of for that talent pool in Scotland. And we talked about this, and then you see him do the same ball recovery and the same tracking. He's very good positionally as well, Derek. What I like about him is that, see if somebody strides out, like John Souttar last week against St Johnstone, when he strides out, Connor Barron, when he came on, was naturally sitting in and kind of covering those moves, and he keeps it quite simple, which I like about him as well. But he does have an eye for a pass also. So really impressed by Connor Barron. He is turning out to be what we hoped he would be.
Yeah. And long may it continue. He's actually been tipped for a Scotland call-up for the upcoming Nations League matches against Poland and Portugal, which I think would be well deserved. He's been superb for Rangers, and long may that continue. A few comments. Derek says, you know what, a morning Rangers review is brilliant to be able to tune in every weekday at 9:30. That's very kind of you to say so. And Sharpie Staunch gets in touch. He says, morning troops from a Witherspoon. So starting early. What are you getting today, Sharpie? A big full English or whatever? A Witherspoons. Are you partial to a wee Witherspoons now and again, Stevie?
Derek, that I'm not a regular in these kind of places. I'm not a drinker or anything like that. So, nah, I'm not. Wetherspoons, that's like a stag weekend stuff. And in fact, I think the last time I was in a Wetherspoons was on John's stag do last October time. That was a weekend that Philip Comont actually got announced. So that was the last time I was in a Wetherspoons. There you go, Derek.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. So there you go. Sharpie Staunch says he's having a large breakfast with a black pudding and a pint of Stella. Champions breakfast there for Sharpie Staunch. So good stuff. Hopefully you enjoy it, buddy. Moving on from that, encouraging news yesterday, Stevie. Oscar Cortez posting on his Instagram page just an image of him and on the training pitch. It looked like it's obviously from last season, but he had the emoji, the tensing bicep emoji, and the sort of praying emoji as well. He's been out since hobbling off at Tynecastle on the opening day. Hopefully we can see him back before too long, because Rangers need him.
Yeah, we need everybody, don't we? Nico Raskin was due back this week. So there is an open training session where you get to watch the first 15 minutes from 10:45 today. So yes. I should imagine that the likes of Sky Sports and that will cover that, and they'll have some pictures. And I'm really hopeful that Nico's going to be in amongst that. So you have that. And then obviously Oscar Cortez. That's one I think is a good question for the manager at the presser this afternoon, Derek. He's up at 1:30. So I will be attending. I'll maybe see if I can get a squad update in general terms of and on Cortez and who's coming back. I think people would maybe want an update on that. And then I'll ask the inevitable question about transfers as well, and see if I can get an answer. I won't get an answer because, remember we were sitting at Birmingham, we asked him about Sherney, and he's like, don't know anything about the player, we're not going to speculate the next day. So he's a wee bit of a fib when it comes to that stuff, Phil. But, if these are the questions that people want answered, and I think maybe they are, we'll get a squad update, we'll try and get a wee injury update, and then we'll maybe ask them about transfers. And we can maybe try and ask it a different way, where we can ask them, we're getting linked with high value signings and things like that. Does that mean we can potentially be excited about the next week? Would you expect things to happen? Maybe see if I can get a different question to them, but try and get the same answer we want. But interesting, definitely with the Cortez thing yesterday, and hopeful that he'll be back on the grass soon. If not soon, he might already be back out doing light stuff and that. So we'll try and get a wee update and see where we are with him. But with regards to needing him, we need everybody. And the thing with Cortez is as well is we need him. when you get a bad injury like he had, you pick up little niggles and things. You look at Tom Lawrence. Tom Lawrence was out, for the best part of 6, 7, 8 months, and then picked up loads of little niggles after it, and it's taken him a while to get injury free. So Cortez, we might just have to really carefully manage, and but getting these guys back. Nico is the exact same. Dujon Sterling, all these guys. We need to get consistent availability out of them before we can really start counting on them, I think. And players like that, they've all got potential, haven't they, Derek, to be the players we really want them to be.
Yeah, most definitely. Totally agree with that. And he's been unfortunate with injuries so far. So let's hope that he's on the comeback to return to the fold. Okay, so tomorrow is Ross County Stevie. In terms of team selection, I know that Robin Proper came off in the last game against St Johnstone. We'll get an update on his availability from the manager a little later on. In terms of the back line, are you making any alterations? If Proper doesn't make it, who comes in?
I think probably Leon Balogun. I would imagine Leon Balogun did post this week that he was back in training. So he was, and this was actually proper attire for this season in terms of training stuff. So he'll be back. So he would come in, and I don't see me changing anything else. Jeffy plays on the left. I thought he was really good last week. He plays Tav on the right, and then Suter and Balogun. I'm hopeful that Proper will be fine. I'm hopeful that it's just a wee knock to his back. Yeah. And obviously Jackson goes. So no issues with that back line.
I've got Robert Fraser at left back. We've got our predicted lineups, myself and Chris a little, I think probably later on this evening, folks, but I would like to see Robbie Fraser start at left back with Jeffy pushed up, I've got to say. I agree with you about Balogun coming in, and not much change with regards to the back line. Midfield's an interesting one. In terms of the sort of midfield trio, as you touched on, we'll here get an update on Raskin. He won't be yet. If he is back in training, I can't imagine he'll be fit enough to start the game. I'd imagine it would be a Barron, Diamande, and likely to be Tom Lawrence, Stevie.
I was just thinking about this because no matter who it is, Lawrence, Dowell, whoever you choose to put in that position, you're kind of just more hoping than you are expecting a performance, aren't you? So, whoever plays as 10 is what it is. And then Cherny on the right. I'd still go Jeffy left, Matondo left. I think Matondo was good last week. If Matondo doesn't play, that might be an interesting little insight into where he is with regards to possibly getting out the door. And then, obviously, I think Dessers comes back in for Danilo. Would I like to see Danilo and Dessers up front? Maybe Danilo could sit in a wee bit deeper. That might be an interesting one. I would love to see something like that, but he's never going to do it. So I think it kind of picks itself. That 10 position, Derek, is one that we urgently, because he keeps persisting with it.
I know.
I think that, I'm not anti-Tom Lawrence, but he's not, in my opinion, capable of providing goals and stuff in the very big crunch moments. Tom Lawrence is capable of scoring and getting a decent amount in the season, but I don't think he really ever has been able to produce it when it really, really matters. And that's my question mark over him. We already know about Hadji and Cantwell. Alex Lowry doesn't seem to have a future at the club either, so you would be as well putting him out somewhere too. And that leaves you with Tom Lawrence, who I think could be an effective squad player. Maybe he will be more effective if he was coming on for 10, 15 minutes in games. So I still think that position is going to be strengthened. Otherwise, we're going to be having the same conversations for the rest of the season, saying who comes in as 10. So we just need, I think we need urgently to get somebody in there. That's my big thing.
Yeah, put it this way, I don't think can play a 10 at Parkhead. Would you agree?
It doesn't really matter if I agree or not. I would say no, and I would go for a flat 3, and I would probably put Dujon in there next to Diamande and Barron. But the manager loves the 10, and he's not for changing. So it's going to be interesting. There's a few things happening over there as well, Derek, and I don't like to cast my eye over there, but they could be losing a few players, and that's what we need. We need them to come down a wee bit. So it's going to be interesting. They've got a really strong midfield, which is where they win the games before.
Yeah,
and not to deviate towards Parkhead too much, because we've obviously got the game tomorrow, but we're capable of going there and creating chances. You've seen it even in the game we got beat. Fabio Silva had 2 really excellent chances, which he should score.
good point. Yeah.
So, although we're up against it, and I think we're capable of, if we're set up properly and if the players are on it, of creating chances and things. So whoever's in that 10 position needs to take it. I think when we played Tom Lawrence in there in previous games, it's not worked. So it's one for the manager to consider. Would you then have an eye on next week when you pick your team tomorrow? I think potentially, but do you really need Sterling, Barron and Diamande in a midfield at home to Ross County? I'm not sure you do. No disrespect to Ross County. They're very well drilled and stuff like that. They've lost, I think, arguably their best players in Simon Murray and Danda.
Yeah.
From the team that embarrassingly beat us towards the end of last season. We should be fully inserting ourselves on this game, Derek, and dominating and going to win it and get the points. I'm not going to say quite convincingly, because that's disrespectful, but we should have enough where we're going to impose ourselves completely on this. This is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, Rangers should be beating Ross County every day of the week. And you're quite right. It was catastrophic, the collapse up at Dingwall last season. Ross County have started the season with 2 draws in the league. They were knocked out of the League Cup last weekend, a 1-0 defeat to Spartans, no less. So you like to think that Rangers will have enough about them to go and do the business tomorrow. Just on the front 3, I'd have Jefty on the left, Dessers up front, and I would have Václav Černý on the right tomorrow. So that is how I would go with the lineup tomorrow. And just on the Hampden thing, Gordon with an interesting point, Stevie. Pretty sparse crowd last weekend, it's fair to say. Says, do you think if this is our last game at Hampden, will it be half full again? I think there was a number of reasons for that last week. I think it'd be a decent enough crowd tomorrow. I don't think it'll be full, but I think it'll be more than what we witnessed last weekend against St Johnstone. Yeah,
it'll be more than what we witnessed last weekend. It's a season ticket game, so I think you'll be mid-40s, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It will be our last trip to Hampden on league duty. Hopefully it's not our last trip to Hampden this season. Mm-hmm. But I think like everybody else, listen, I'll be looking forward to that one being done as well, and being able to get away from it. But things are progressing well from Ibrox's side of view. Just when we were talking about it yesterday, we were talking about the crane being away, and in the next coming days, the crane's actually now gone. Yeah, we were talking about the things being in place, and now, it's a case of putting the stairs in. That's all happening. So this is happening really quickly, which, to be fair, John Bennett told us would happen. It's just a case of getting the stuff here. It's all here now, and they just need to crack on with it. So with the crane being off the pitch, if they can get the final bits on the stadium, you're looking at 2-3 weeks for the pitch. And Dundee, I think genuinely Dundee at home in the cup will be where we are and kind of what we need to be and where we need to be at. So yeah, Hampden's served its purpose, Derek. I think we'll all be pleased when we're back home. That's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Right, that'll pretty much do us there, folks. Thank you as ever for joining us on the show. Before you go, Stevie, score prediction for tomorrow: Rangers winning comfortably for you, or is it going to be a struggle?
No, I think we'll be okay tomorrow. So I'm going to go 3-0, and I'm back to doing my weekly John Suter prediction. John Suter will score at some point. Wow. Cyril will score at some point as well. So yeah, I'd like to see us just go and win, and win well. Please play some good stuff. And by the way, incidentally, I thought last week against St Johnstone we were good. So if you get that level of performance again, we created so many chances last week. So if you get that level of performance again, I think we'll be okay. And I'm looking for more of that. So yeah, I'll tip us for 3-0. John Suter, anytime scorer. That would be nice. Also, as well, Derek, a couple of shout outs to do. Me and Chris's show went out yesterday about the CEO position. So that's one to look out for, folks. You can find it, members' videos on YouTube, and it's also free to watch for everyone as well. So go and check that out. Chris and I have got our show, the talking points. This is episode 2. It's out, and also my article's out this morning as well, Derek. So talking about the wider kind of rebuild, if you like, and talking about where we are with wages and what we're doing and what we're trying to do. So that's also there if people fancy a read. And Chris and I will be covering from Hampden tomorrow. So
yeah.
Joshua again. I'm just saying, I'm just putting this out there, Derek. Joshua again, a trip to Hampden, stuff on. Stevie, can you cover, etc., etc. So, you know, we'll be on match day coverage. That's all I'm saying. Look, Joshua's the boss. Yep. I'm not accusing him of anything, but you know, it's funny that I'm back on. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you've got a 100% record, Stevie, I'm sure, covering games in place of them. So get lump on your money on Rangers tomorrow. A comfortable win, that's for sure. But check Stevie's piece out. It's in the link below this video, folks. And go and check out the talking point as well. It's well worth a watch. Very good stuff from Chris and Stevie. Right, that'll do us there. As ever, it's press conference day. Chris and Stevie is heading over to the Rangers training centre a little later on. I'll be on with Chris later on this afternoon to discuss the big talking points from Philippe Clement and whatever player is put up for the press. So join us for that if you can. Right, that'll do us there. Enjoy your Friday, and we'll speak to you later on. Bye for now.